All right, everyone. So I want to talk to you guys about something that was on my mind, and it was on my mind during the stream. So here I am doing a video. I want to talk to you guys about how people will admit to some wrongdoing while concealing other facts in order to make themselves look sincere and honest. So they will admit to some wrongs that they have done, but they will conceal the other wrongs that they have done. They will conceal the worst evils that they have done in order to hide their true sinister intentions, while at the same time appearing as forthcoming, honest, and sincere. So I'll give you guys some examples of what I'm talking about. So there's a video that you can watch online. This video came out recently, and it shows this guy going into a police station somewhere in the United States, and he admits to killing his girlfriend. And he says that he shot his girlfriend in the head and he feels terrible about it. And so the police officer begins to try to console him. He begins to say, "Oh, well, you've come to the police station, you have admitted your fault. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of sincerity and honesty to come over here and admit your wrongdoing and tell the police what you did. It takes a lot of guts and it takes a real man to do what you have just done." But then this person begins to say certain things that really, really indicate that his motivations are not pure. His motivations are not righteous. So he begins to say, "Well, my girlfriend and I were just playing around. We were horse playing, and I pulled out a pistol and I pointed it, and then she smacked the pistol and I accidentally pulled the trigger and a bullet hit her right in the head, and that's what happened. It was a complete accident." And so the cops say, "Okay, so you shot her in the head. It was an accident according to you. So what did you do after that?" "Well, I began to take her body to the basement. Yeah, I put her body in the basement, and yeah, that's what I did." And so the cops were thinking, "Okay, so you came to the police station, you confessed that you killed your girlfriend, but now you're telling us that you put her body in the basement. Well, why in the hell didn't you call the police? Why in the hell didn't you dial 911? Why in the hell didn't you call for an ambulance?" Well, So what was this guy trying to do? He was trying to appear as forthcoming and honest and sincere by confessing that he killed his girlfriend, that he shot his girlfriend in the head, and he indeed did admit to shooting his girlfriend in the head, but he concealed certain facts. He said that it was an accident. He was trying to conceal the fact that it was not an accident. But as he was being interrogated, he began to expose himself. And that's what these types of people always do. They will try to conceal certain facts. They will try to conceal certain things that really expose them. But as they try to conceal their evils, they expose themselves inevitably, because he exposed himself by saying that he put his girlfriend's body in the basement. And the cops immediately, I think they were suspicious before he even said this, but they got their confirmation that their suspicions were correct. And so they went to his house. There indeed was a body of a woman in his basement, but it wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate murder. But he knew, I'm guessing that his strategy, well, it's quite obvious that his strategy was that he knew he was going to get caught, and so he wanted to just go to the police station, act forthcoming, act like he really felt bad, but he didn't want to get a long sentence, so he tried to present the situation as an accident when the reality was that it was indeed first-degree murder, cold-blooded murder. But he exposed himself in the process of trying to conceal certain facts. There is another example that I can think of. It is the example of Horst Wachter. Horst Wachter was the son of the major SS Nazi leader Otto Wachter. Otto Wachter was he was an SS leader who founded the SS Galizien. SS Galizien was a major SS unit that was heavily involved in Ukraine and what is now Poland, and they were involved in Poland, and they were involved in murdering Jews and Polish people. A part of the SS Galizien was a part of the SS Galizien were a bunch of Ukrainian nationalists. And these Ukrainian nationalists took part in the slaughter, in the genocide of the Polish and Jewish peoples. And so Otto Wachter was a mass murderer. I mean, it's quite obvious, right? The guy's a mass murderer. You don't have to work very hard to conclude that. Well, his son was a guy by the name of Horst Wachter. And Horst Wachter did an interview with a writer by the name of Philip Sands. And Philip Sands wrote a book called East-West Street, and it's a book that I'm currently reading. I'm almost done with it. It is an informative read. It talks about the Nuremberg trials, and it also talks about how the term genocide came into existence and how the term war crimes came into existence and how these terms were used in the trial of the Nazis. And so Otto Wachter comes up in the book, and the author actually met the son of Otto Wachter. His name was Horst Wachter. And Horst Wachter will admit to certain things in this interview, right? He admitted to certain things in this interview. He said that his father was indeed a Nazi. He said that his father was indeed deep into the Nazi system, into the Nazi beast, the evil, demonic Nazi Leviathan, right? The genocidal regime of the Nazis, the Third Reich. But in the same breath, he says, but I don't believe my father was evil or a murderer. So what is Horst Wachter doing? Horst Wachter is trying to conceal certain facts to make his father look better than he is, or to make his father look as if he's not as evil as he really was. But at the same time, Horst Wachter is revealing himself, because Horst Wachter is saying, well, my father was a Nazi, yes. Oh, okay, so by him saying that his father was a Nazi, he comes across as sincere and forthcoming and honest. He's admitting that his father was a Nazi. Okay, fine, good for him. But in the same breath, he says, but my father was not evil. Oh, I see. So you're admitting that your father was a Nazi. So you're trying to make yourself look noble and honest. But at the same time, you are making little of the crimes that your father committed by trying to convince people that your father really wasn't an evil person. And by doing that, you reveal and expose yourself. When you try to conceal facts that expose the evil that you are subscribing to, you expose that you are yourself evil, because trying to hide evil reveals that you are evil and you actually expose yourself. But you see, these are the tricks that people play, and they do this sort of thing all the time. And we see this sort of thing all the time. We see this going on right now with this CEO killer. You know, there are a lot of people, tons of people. It's actually quite disturbing how many people are out there just loving this murderer. And I'm not going to say this guy's name. I don't want to say this guy's name. Everyone's saying this guy's name as if he's some kind of a celebrity. But you have so many people talking about it. And I saw Fox News talking about this guy. Everyone on X is talking about this guy. I'm saying X now instead of Twitter/X because I think it's quite generally known that it's now called X. But you see everyone on X praising this guy, tons of Facebook posts praising this guy, and these posts will get tons of views. In one post I saw on Facebook, there was this praise of this murderer, and the post had like 75,000 or so likes. I mean, really, really ridiculous, right? But what does this tell us? It tells us that extremism is returning back, and it's being accepted by the general population. That's what this tells us. It's gradually taking place. This evil is gradually taking place as we speak, and we're seeing it really clearly manifesting itself before our eyes in real time. It's actually really, really scary to see what's happening. But this is how it works. You know, all evil works in incremental stages, and it works very patiently. And in this incremental process, it will hide certain things while revealing other things. So it has to reveal some evil things because it wants to push evil, but at the same time, it has to hide some facts of its motivations in order to market itself, in order to make itself appear acceptable to the general population. So, in other words, you have people who come along and they'll say things like, well, I think Hitler took it too far, but I do admire some of the things that he wrote in Mein Kampf. When someone says something like that, he's exposing himself or herself. You do have women Nazis out there. Let's not exclude the women folk, everyone. But you have people who will come out and say things like, well, I just read Mein Kampf, and there are certain things in that book that I really, really agree with. And I think Hitler had some really admirable and really good ideas. I just don't agree with him killing people. I don't agree with doing mass murder like he did. I don't agree with orchestrating genocide like he did. But he did have good ideas. And when someone talks like that, what they're really saying is, I love Hitler, I love Nazism, but I'm not going to say that I love the Holocaust, because if I do, it's going to make me look bad, and then you're not going to as easily accept what I'm trying to convey to you, what I'm trying to inculcate into your soul. And that's how people do things. This is how it works. It's very dangerous. It's very effective. If you look at the rise of Nazism did not rise up overnight. It didn't just manifest itself in its full but in its full monstrous form overnight. It worked in increments. And there was a journalist who wrote an article around the time of the rise of the Nazis, and he described the rise of Nazism as the replacement of a railway bridge. So he said, when you want to build a new railway bridge, you don't just demolish the old railway bridge, because that would disrupt the flow of traffic. What you do is you take little pieces of the railway bridge little by little, and then you replace those pieces. So you take some pieces, replace those pieces, and then you do the same thing the next day. Every day you're taking little bits of the bridge, piece by piece, and replacing those pieces, and you're doing so every single day. It's a gradual process, but it does not disrupt the flow of traffic. And it's so subtle and so gradual that the people in the train are just sitting there reading their newspapers, and they don't even know that a new railway bridge is being built. And they don't realize that there is a new railway bridge. They don't realize that they were building a new railway bridge until they actually see that the railway bridge looks completely different. And so at that point, it would feel that this railway bridge was demolished and replaced overnight, when the reality is that the building of this new railway bridge and the replacement of the old one was a very long and gradual process, and it went through a very, very subtle and slow process that was so subtle that you didn't even notice it until you saw the new bridge in its complete new form. And this is how revolutions work. This is how evil ideologies take over societies. It doesn't work overnight. It works step by step by step. Now, to those who are not aware, to those who are not observing what's going on, when they see a new ideology becoming super popular, it may appear to them as if this has happened overnight. But really, for the past 10 years or so, or in the last cluster of years, it seemed as they weren't noticing all the changes, right? So in the years before that point, they weren't noticing all the gradual changes, is what I'm trying to say. They weren't observing them. They weren't seeing them. They didn't care about their very existence. They didn't care about the existence of this small incrementalism. But they didn't realize this massive change. They don't realize this massive change until it's too late. And so that's the problem, is that you have these revolutionaries who are working in incremental steps, and then you have the people who are not observing those incremental steps. And so therefore, people don't notice massive changes in society until it's too late. And so what we're seeing right now are people being taken in this revolutionary fanatical way of thinking, and they think that they're doing something good. They think that they are subscribing to something good because United Health wasn't giving enough people the medical coverage that they needed, and so people died because of the policies of United Health. So therefore, this CEO deserved it. This is a great thing. The problem with this way of thinking is, while health insurance companies are bureaucratic and they can be abusive, this way of thinking that says it's okay to kill a CEO will escalate into other things, and it'll be actually worse for society if we allow this way of thinking to be completely unleashed and to become out of hand. So it goes from CEOs to landlords. From there, it goes on to people who just have too much money. It goes on to people who are in a certain privileged position. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and then before you know it, utter brutality is considered completely acceptable under the guise of a certain worldview, under a certain rhetoric, and the society actually completely decays and society becomes completely reduced to just mass brutality and chaos, and then the society is in a state that's a lot worse than what it was when people were complaining about CEOs. And that's what's going on. People are saying, well, I agree with the killing of the CEO because I don't like what United Health did. So you see right there this trick being played. He's saying, I agree with killing, so he's exposing himself, but he's trying to present himself as being noble. Just like the guy said, I killed my girlfriend, but it was an accident. Oh, and by the way, I put her body in the basement because, it was an accident. He revealed himself while trying to conceal himself. These people are also revealing themselves while trying to conceal themselves. They're trying to conceal their own evil by presenting their desires in this noble way and using axioms like they really care about the poor or they really care about the people who can't afford health insurance. But at the same time, they are revealing their own evil by supporting murder. And they expose themselves. And this is how evil works. And if you just pay attention, you can see the red flags, and they are there. And it's like going back to the analogy of the railway bridge. People don't notice a new bridge until they see the new bridge in its full form, in its entirety. But months prior to that point, they didn't notice all of the incremental changes. And that's the problem with people. People don't observe the incremental changes that are happening. And they are incremental changes taking place. But the evil of this process is making itself more and more clear because we're seeing people actually praising terrorism. And that's another thing that I want to add. The fact that so many people are praising the murder of a CEO means that terrorism is now popular in American society. Now, we've seen other signs of this. The George Floyd riots was a sign of this. And also the UK riots were a sign of this as well. Now, the UK is not the US, but it's still a part of the Western world. And the fact that you had people praising the UK rioters means that terrorism is now seen as something that's acceptable in the Western world, as long as the terrorism is done under a certain rhetoric. So in the case of the far right, terrorism is considered cool as long as it's against certain ethnic minorities or certain people like migrants or certain politicians. In the case of the George Floyd rioters, terrorism is A-OK as long as it's done under the guise of going against the police. And even in the, let's say, January 6th riots, we saw right-wingers attacking police officers, and that was considered okay because the cops were deemed as an enemy because they were defending the Capitol building. Now, we also see this sort of incrementalism being done by the Vatican. The Vatican has been slowly getting into eugenics. Now, again, this sounds crazy because people don't want to notice the little subtle changes, just like people don't notice the little incremental changes on the railway bridge. So John Paul II, when he was the Pope, he said that evolution was true and that there's nothing unchristian about accepting the theory of evolution, accepting Darwinism. Well, Darwinism is a part of eugenics. Without Darwinism and really evolutionism is the foundation of eugenics. You cannot have eugenics without evolutionism. It's impossible because evolutionism teaches that human beings evolved, or that some sort of lower primate evolved into Homo sapiens by going through a process of death and killing. And so the fit killed the unfit genes therefore died out, the fit genes mated and got perpetuated and lived on into the next generation, and then the cycle continued on, the process continued on, and this process went on and on and on for, I don't know, a million or 50 gazillion years or whatever. And then eventually these primates evolved into Homo sapiens. And so this process of evolution is a process of death and killing. So if evolution is a process of death and killing, who is to say that we cannot continue this process of evolution by becoming natural selection and controlling the mating habits of human beings and dictating who can have children and who cannot, based on our idea of what type of genes are better for society. So we'll say these people can't have kids because they have unfit genes. These people can have kids because they have great genes. And so this is what eugenics was about. It was about controlling who can have kids and who cannot. This is what the Supreme Court case Buck versus Bell was about. The Supreme Court stated that it's not unconstitutional for a state to mandate someone to be sterilized because the state has deemed that person as being unworthy of having children. So this is eugenics, but the entire idea of eugenics is dependent upon the idea of evolutionism. They go hand in hand. And so John Paul II comes along and says evolutionism is true. What was going on? The Vatican then accepted the foundational ideology of eugenics. Now, what do we see happening right now? Well, within recent years, back in the year 2020, the Vatican invited a eugenist by the name of Jamie Metzl to come and speak at a Vatican conference. The Vatican also requested Jamie Metzl to write a paper for the Vatican. You can read the paper online. And Jamie Metzl, in this paper, written at the request of the Vatican, talks about genetic engineering, human engineering, and he talks about breeding humans to have a certain level of intelligence, breeding humans to be athletic. It's eugenics, right? The Nazis wanted to breed a certain human. This guy wants to breed a certain human, and the Vatican is getting involved in this evil. Then in 2021, the Vatican invited Jamie Metzl again to speak at a Vatican conference. And what was he talking about? He was talking about his ideology of human engineering. So the Vatican is now flirting with the modern day eugenics movement. Now, it's very incremental, right? You can rewind yourself all the way back into the papacy of John Paul II, and you will see John Paul II accepting evolutionism. That right there was the Vatican accepting the foundational ideology of eugenics. Fast forward to the year 2020, the Vatican is now collaborating or is now in cahoots with a guy who is one of the main voices for the modern day eugenics movement. Fast forward to 2021, the Vatican invites this guy again. So there's something going on here. The Vatican is pursuing an agenda of eugenics, and it's doing so in a subtle and incremental way so that average people will not see it. Your average Catholic doesn't know about it. I don't think any Catholics are talking about this at all. But I'm seeing it, and I'm trying to get other people to see it as well, because I want people to see the incremental steps towards this mission of bringing humanity to its destruction. This evil agenda that wants to bring humanity into this under this evil fold of Darwinism, which is just anti-human. But all evil works in increments, and that's the reality. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.